Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Capitalist Cast. Joining me today is Representative Seth Grove, and he is the chairman of the State Government Committee, which is going to come in handy because we have a couple of things that are related to his committee that have been in the news lately. The first one that I wanted to talk about was, it would kind of be an unusual year if a member of the General Assembly or government was not indicted or arrested for something. So we had a member of the House of Representatives who was charged essentially with committing fraud as it relates to per diems.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain a little bit what per diems are and how that system works or doesn't work?
I'll give it
talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I'll give it my best. I've never taken them. Being close to Harrisburg, I'm home every night, so I've never done the process personally. But it's a method by which legislators, when they stay in Harrisburg for hotels, food, etc., file for a per diem instead of doing exact expenses to cover those costs associated with staying over. Representative Margot Davidson, who was charged with fraud. She basically filed for, quote, per diems. She didn't stay over in Harrisburg. And then she also billed, if I'm not mistaken, her campaign committee as well with those similar charges. So trying to double dip from expenses over a number of years. There's, from my understanding, I guess there's no receipts that need to be submitted for those receipt of per diems. So it's problematic from an internal control process. I mean, you're kind of signing, I guess, an attestation that you are supplying accurate information, but really, where's the checks and balances on that? So I guess with her congressional campaign a few years ago, there were some filings that were questioned, and then the Attorney General's office got involved, and it took them a lot of time to dig through it. On top of it, there was a grand jury convened. A couple of the charges were her lying to the grand jury on top of her paying someone to lie to the grand jury on top of it. So multiple layers. Yeah. So, and from my perspective, I don't like wasteful spending. If you know that, it really ticks me off. I mean, I went after the OIG for purchasing $160,000 of guns. Like $160,000 in a multi-billion-dollar budget, not a big deal. But if you're not watching any penny, you don't give people heat for it. Nothing's gonna be changed. Like, I want people to say, we're gonna spend this money. I don't want the legislature looking at us for us. The problem is, it happened in my branch of government and in my house, and that really ticks me off. So we're going to do a deep dive. We're going to bring the comptroller in, ask how the per diem process works, what more control processes work. The fact that a member was double dipping through campaign finance. Let's bring in Department of State, have a discussion on lobbying disclosure as well as campaign finance reporting system. How do we use those systems to integrate a full picture on reimbursement to legislators to make sure people aren't potentially triple dipping? And it's all electronic, so there's got to be a way where we can start matching stuff up and doing a better job and providing the tools needed to our comptroller to really have a holistic view of what's happening in the financial structure for those reimbursements.
Yeah, and from a external perspective, one of the things, and just to make perfectly clear, cap and per diems are probably one of the worst things that the legislature does in terms of how they, not all, but a number of them certainly appear to be personally enriching themselves at taxpayer expense. Over the years, we've seen members of the General Assembly who have purchased homes using per diem money. We have seen this instance with Representative Davidson, where she's being charged. And then we've also seen there's another gentleman from Western Pennsylvania, Representative Sionata. There was just a look at his, per diems that he's collected over the years, and he's been reimbursed and received something like $1.3 million in expenses over the years. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a system that is ripe for abuse. And it really, when taxpayers take a look at this, when people are kind of informed that, oh, and by the way, these per diems are tax-free, this is, you're not paying income tax on this. It's treated just like an expense reimbursement, even though you're not providing any proof that you actually incurred any of these expenses. It is one more thing that really separates the General Assembly from the people who are picking up the tab. I know for me personally, I don't get reimbursed for an expense unless I have a receipt to show that I did in fact spend the money. And I know very few employers at this point who don't operate on you need to give us a receipt to get reimbursed basis.
I think even in the private sector that use a per diem process still requires some kind of expenses being handed in to verify someone was actually where they say they were and spending money that they said they actually spent.
Yeah. I mean the trust us. We're I mean, considering we had two former speakers of the House sharing a jail cell at one point. I mean, it's kind of hard for the legislature to just say trust us at this point.
And here's another thing. Like, you stole from the taxpayers. Should you have gotten a sweetheart deal to keep your pension?
Yeah, that's a whole other issue when we took a look at this. Because you had mentioned the fact that not only did she purportedly steal from taxpayers, and she lied to a grand jury. She also paid someone to lie to a grand jury, allegedly. And the Attorney General's charges are minor enough that she will not lose her pension.
And they could all be felonies where she could have lost her pension. So what transpired in the deal making process to give her a sweetheart deal where she's going to keep her health care, pension, and everything else? You stole from the taxpayers and you lied. You lied to the prosecutor. Any other citizen, apply that to any other citizen. What's their outcome? You lie to a prosecutor, I'm pretty sure they're pretty ticked and they're going to go after you with everything they have. So, we have to look at, we have a couple subcommittees meeting. We're going to take a look at the pension forfeiture law. We're going to take a look at lobbying disclosure. Obviously, the speaker put together a huge package for lobbying disclosure. We're going to take a look at the Ethics Act, which hasn't been opened in a good number of years. And we're going to look at the legislative per diem process. So everybody should be on notice. The State Government Committee is going to look at some internal changes in state government. And if I have to bulldog them through, I'm going to bulldog them through because it's the right thing to do. And I'm just tired of it. It just, at some point we need to help ourselves with the, evil politician, politician storyline here in Pennsylvania. So we're gonna look at fixing it.
Cool. And I think that, taking those steps and opening up, particularly, I mean, the per diem process, but the Ethics Act, I mean, it's just, there's a lot that really needs to be taken care of and really needs to be addressed. As it relates to lobbying, I know that the speaker and also there are some proposals coming out of the Senate. I mean, there are a lot of things that can easily be put into place. I know over in the Senate, they're actually going to start posting all of the expenses and everything online. So I really hope to see the House, starting to do that rather than having to put in, as someone who puts in numerous requests for those kinds of things, it's kind of, not only is it a hassle to get the information that you receive is not in a particularly useful format.
And to me, I think it's just an easier, if it's eligible under right to know, just provide it ahead of time. You save us a lot of time in work. It's already there. It should be an electronic system where it's easily uploaded. So I think it's a great direction. I applaud the Senate for that initiative, and I think the House should join. And I think CORE, Chief Clerk's Office, internally we call it CORE, comptroller between House and Senate, just upload it and use LDP, which is our legislative data processing entity, just post it on there and be done with it. That way you don't have to worry about right to knows. It's all there, and we see. I mean, it's all financial expense stuff. Just post it. You're saving all your right to know officers a lot of time and a lot of headache on stuff they're going to supply anyway.
Yeah. Just make it there, make it available, make it transparent, because a lot of the problems that we seem to run into, and this isn't just, Pennsylvania specifically, but a lot of problems that we seem to run into is really related to transparency and the open process of, this is the information, this is where, this is what you need to find out, this is how you can find it, this is where it's located. The government should have, as much as possible, an open checkbook approach. I mean, it's our money. We should know how it's being spent, and it's just insane that the information that we should be able to easily access it just takes multiple hoops in order to get it.
Right.
So, hey, very excited to see a person who is appreciative of our right to know. Eric Arneson just popped in the comments talking about providing commonly requested records.
Right. I completely agree with him. And listen, he works for the Treasurer's Office now. The Treasurer's Office has this awesome transparency portal. Huge fan of it. It's a great place to go for looking at state expenditures. They started a checkbook process. You can spend hours on that. I've been yelled at by my wife late hours. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, again, the Treasurer's moral. She's like, stop. It is chock full of information. So Eric's with Treasury now, and just want to applaud them on their effort. And and Eric's dead right. If you get repeated asks and you have to provide it, just put it online, and all you have to do is say, we have it online. Go search. Have fun. Bye.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah. So it's very cool to see, folks like you who are interested in improving transparency, and also, as you mentioned, the Treasurer's Office, who's been doing a fantastic job with increasing transparency so folks know how their money is being spent. And on the subject of transparency, that kind of dovetails nicely into the second subject I wanted to talk to you about, which is redistricting. So typically the redistricting process historically has been approached almost as a black box. You really have no idea what's going on. There's kind of this map that comes out at the end, and that's it. The approach that you are taking this time around is very different. How are you doing things this time around as opposed to what's been done in the past?
Yeah. So I'm one of the few members who actually was on the state government committee 10 years ago for redistricting. We did about 3 hearings, I think, in the House, 3 hearings in the Senate, and then you're right, magically a map pops up. And I think a normal process, right? So House passes a blank vehicle over the Senate, Senate loads it, sends it back, and it's off and, signed into law by the governor. That map that was created with those congressional districts was good to go until 2018. Then we had a bunch of activist, leftist judges, one of which said, told the League of Women Voters, who was the chief litigant in throwing out those maps, that, if you elect me, I'm going to change these congressional maps. They're good to go for 7 years. And magically in 2018, we had a lawsuit. The Supreme Court wrote it themselves. Put a gag order on the Californian they hired to draw those maps, and magically we have new maps without any input whatsoever from anybody, created by an individual we're not allowed to talk to. So I'm like, we got to do this differently. Yeah. So we started with looking at Representative Wendy Thomas. She had a bill to kind of look at congressional redistricting and state and House districting, and they're 2 separate items. Congressional districts go through regular legislative process, introduced as a bill, passed and signed into law. The House, Pennsylvania House and Senate districts are done by a commission that is currently meeting. It's made up of the 4 caucus floor leaders and a 5th. The 4 couldn't agree, so the Supreme Court picked the former Chancellor of Pitt to head to head that up. And we're all on similar paths. Senate State Government Committee is doing hearings. We're doing hearings in the House. And then the State Congressional Redistricting Commission is also doing hearings throughout state to try to bring in more support. So we did a joint hearing with the Senate a couple months ago, just kind of update where's the census data. We knew it would be delayed. What's the time frame coming out? And then we wanted to finish up election stuff in the House. As soon as that was done, I wanted to do a more open and transparent process. So we did 2 back-to-back hearings, one on, I called it Congressional Districting 101, just the background. How's the process work? What theories are there? That kind of stuff. Had some stakeholders testify in the second hearing same day. And now we start the road tour next week with Western Pennsylvania. We're doing Northwest region, Allegheny region, and then the Southwest region. In late September, we're doing the South or the Northeast, the Southeast, and then Philadelphia. And then we're going to end in October with kind of North Central and then South Central. And we're trying to gauge as much input as we can. We create a website, PA redistricting.com. PA-redistricting.com. You can follow along. All the testimony is going to be provided online, all the hearing locations, times, how to sign up. So you can sign up to testify in person. You can submit your written testimony, and we want public input. We want to have that discussion. Did you like since the 2018 maps didn't have any public comment whatsoever? Did you like them? Did you not like them? What did you or didn't you like about them? What do you want to see? What do you think is a community of interest? What do you think should be kept together? Because congressional redistricting is tough because it's one person per vote. So with 17 congressional seats, down from 18, we have to get rid of a seat. And then half of those seats are going to have one single person in it, which is very difficult. That's where you end up splitting communities, streets, right? So and on that website, we also have the ability to submit comments on the 2018 maps. You can draw communities of interest and submit them. And now that we have the data out, it's going to take a little bit more, but you'll be able to submit your own map to the committee as well. So we're trying to capture as much public input as we can. Time frame, with petitions going out in February, we'd like to get those maps locked down November, December timeframe. So we'll see how that process plays out. Right now, we're just trying to gauge as much public input on the front end, trying to ask, what do you think a community of interest is? What should we keep together? That kind of stuff. So we're trying to gauge as much as we can on the forefront.
Yeah, and the Pennsylvania Constitution has some of its own requirements as well, as far as the districts needing to be, contiguous and compact.
Yep.
So, I mean, when you look at for a congressional district, there's only so compact it can get because there are 17 of them in a giant state.
Right.
But when we start taking a look at Pennsylvania House and Pennsylvania Senate districts, the compact part starts to look a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And as you are looking at the federal level, you're also having to be aware of some of the federal requirements as far as the Voting Rights Act and
Voting Rights Act, majority minority districts, all those kind of things. Yeah. So it is layered. In with the House and Senate districts, you basically have a +5, -5% shift between districts. So you have some flexibility there as well. So it's a little easier on the House Senate Pennsylvania district side than it is those congressional maps because of that one person, one vote, and it's a plus-minus of literally one person, which is very difficult.
Yeah. So I think that as we take a look at the congressional stuff, are you hopeful that kind of taking this approach, getting public input, that this is going to result in a map that is more likely not only not only will it pass both chambers, but this will be something where, because of the process that you're going through, it will make it more difficult for the Supreme Court to kind of say, hey, we're going to draw our own districts and that's what you're going to get.
Right.
Or are we just kind of still, you're going through this process and we still may end up with the Supreme Court just kind of doing their own thing anyway?
I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do.
Right.
We'll see. We want to make sure we have a good, transparent process. We have split government. We have a Democrat governor. We have a solidly Republican General Assembly. We don't have our veto override ability. So we've got to work with the governor on getting these maps done. It's a constitutional mandate. We have to do it. So I fully look forward to working with the governor's office as we move forward to develop a map. And that's part of getting the public input. What does the public actually want to see? Where do you want to see these district lines gone? And by the way, there's a congressional seat going bye-bye.
Right.
So the more input you have on the front end of why your county or your township or your school district should be whole, the better it is for us to go in and manage that. If there's a local business that has a geographic pull, we need to have those conversations. I look at the map drawn here in York County. York and Adams counties have always been together in every map going back into like the 1800s. Hanover Borough, which is on the border of York and Adams, has a lot of close economic connections with Adams County. Those are the kind of discussions we need to have ahead of the time to say, this is why we drew it this way, because York and Adams have been together. They have joint economic, social ties together between Adams and York because Hanover's on the border. Those are things we're looking for. That's the kind of input we're looking for on the front end, so we can do a better job of drawing the maps. And then the big question is, how do we unleash those maps? I personally don't want to see another blank map, that kind of process. I do want to have an open, transparent process where we unveil the legislation. And I go back to how we handled elections. I introduced an election bill after a multitude of hearings. Everybody got to see it. Everybody got to file amendments to it. It went from House and went to the Senate. Multiple chances to amend and have discussion on it. So hopefully we can institute the same process and have an open and even more open and transparent process instead of the normal. We'll send a blank shell over to the Senate and they'll load it, or vice versa. So hopefully that'll happen. And I think it's a good thing. It's healthy for our state. It's healthy for everybody involved, and hopefully it puts it in a place where the Supreme Court has an understanding of what we're doing, and the governor understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and it makes it for an easier. I'm always a believer. The more work you do on the front end, the easier it is on the back end.
It is going to be an interesting. It'll be interesting to see just how things play out, because I know from the outside looking in, 10 years ago when the redistricting process was going on, there was. I mean, there's literally no information coming out until the day that one of the chambers passes the map, and then you really have to try and parse through everything and figure out, okay, well, what does this mean? And I know as we talked about the process for the House, the Pennsylvania House and Senate is very different than what it is for the congressional process. But the fact that you're collecting this information on the front end is really helpful, and I believe that we will see a better product come out of it as a result, and hopefully there will be a little less kind of finger pointing, but who knows. We got a couple of minutes left. I actually, if you don't mind, after the governor vetoed, you brought up the election reform stuff. After the governor vetoed the legislation that he really didn't want to have any conversations about, he then indicated that he was now willing to have conversations about them. So has anything come of that, or is this just, what's going on? Are we going to see a voting, an election reforms 2.0 bill come out, or was that just a, cover your butt thing from the governor's office because what he said was unpopular?
I'm hopeful that the governor's administration will enter into negotiations. He did publicly say, I'm okay with some version of voter identification. It's a great start. I mean, being the first Democrat governor in the country to say that's a big deal. And I'm sure he took a lot of heat for that. So I do appreciate that. That wasn't an easy thing to say by any means. So I did reintroduce, or will be introducing, House Bill 13. We're including some of Representative Jared Solomon's. He's a Democrat from Philadelphia. Some of his amendments he did file on the floor. We're actually going to agree to them, and then his leadership told him to pull all of them and never told him we were going to agree to some of his amendments. I didn't think that was right, so I told Jared, like, I'm going to include those amendments. Easy stuff. One, help try to recruit poll workers, which is a national problem. Two, were literally just some modernization of language, because again, we do have a election law from 1937. So there were some good bills to really help the election process in Pennsylvania. Tweak some stuff on the independent prosecutor, adding a provision to have counties appoint a chief integrity officer from the DA's office, and then kind of redoing how we fund election equipment moving forward. So some minor tweaks, but in a good spot. Generally the same bill. Hopefully we'll get that out to introduce. And in my co-sponsorship memo, I said I am reintroducing this based on Governor Wolf's comments, hopefully to reset negotiations and discussions. Hopefully we can get there. Probably the first thing out of the gate we're going to do is election stuff, and we got two paths we can do with.
I think we lost your audio partway through there, or at least I did. So I'm not sure if it's gone, or just partially gone. So no. Yeah, I think your mic cut out. That's okay. We're just about at the end of the hour. So I appreciate everybody tuning in today. I hope that our conversation was helpful. And again, technical difficulties are awesome, and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. So thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in today. And thank you, Representative Grove, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk to us. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And next week, we'll be posting about this a little later on, but we will actually be having the Speaker of the House, Representative Brian Cutler, will be our guest, fingers crossed, next Tuesday afternoon. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week.